This is the Minecraft game mode you've never heard of. Most Minecraft servers tell you exactly what you're supposed to do. On factions, you join a team, claim land, and try to raid other bases. On lifesteal, you kill players, take their hearts, and try to take over the server. And on an economy server, you grind money and try to become the richest player online. But in a hidden, small corner of the Minecraft community is a game mode that barely tells you anything when you join. There's no official countries, no server-created governments, no protected towns, no storyline written by the owners. Instead, the players create all of this themselves. These players build cities, form nations, write laws, or be nomads and raiders. They either negotiate treaties and publish newspapers or arrest criminals and go to war. And it's all player enforced, no admins involved. And this unique genre is simply known as Civ. And I mean it, every single server has Civ at the beginning. CivClassic, CivRealm, CivEx, Civ. I used to play on these servers quite a lot back in the day, and I spent a lot of time inside this community. I learned all the mechanics, I watched all these nations form and fall, and I spent years seeing players take Minecraft politics way more seriously than you'd ever expect. And from the outside, Civ can kind of look ridiculous. I mean, there was a whole article on slavery inside the game mode. But it has existed for over a decade and produced thousands of pages of documented history and built communities way more complicated than some entire genres of games. And yet I bet a majority of Minecraft players have never even heard of it. So you might be asking yourself, what even is Civ? And well, a lot of Civ players even ask themselves that question. It might look like a geopolitical roleplay server at first, but that doesn't really explain it, because most roleplay servers begin with a planned world. The owner creates the country, writes the lore, appoints the leaders, and gives the player a story to follow. And Civ kind of works in the completely opposite direction. The server just gives players an open world and a collection of tools, and those tools allow them to protect their property, create their industry, organize their groups, track criminals, and imprison them. What a player actually does with those tools handed to them is completely up to them. A nation doesn't exist because someone typed a command or an owner made it. It exists because a group of players settled in one area, built a home, created roads, opened shops, and treated them like a country. Imagine just a normal survival world with a few of your friends. At first, you build a few houses. Then, someone makes a farm. Another player makes a little shop. Someone connects everything with a road. Eventually, you have enough buildings and enough infrastructure where you have to ask who actually owns what land. Can someone not in your group build here? What happens if someone steals from my chest? Who's going to speak for the town when another group comes up and asks questions? Without anyone actually trying to plan it, your survival base already became a proto-government, and that's exactly what Civ does. It's more or less like joining a normal Minecraft server and then entering a social experiment that's already been running for a couple of years. Now you might be like, Brady, where the hell did this genre even come from? And this genre began way back when, in 2012, when CivCraft opened its doors. CivCraft created this basic formula and then went through multiple worlds and servers before closing years later. After its closure in October of 2016, multiple different successor servers tried to continue on with the idea, including CivClassic, CivRealms, CivEx, and eventually today, CivMC. CivClassic became the longest running and most well-known server in the genre. CivRealms experimented with its own mechanics, own world, and own community, and CivEx also carried on a couple of parts of the overall Civ formula into a different style of world. And the annoying sharks. This server history matters because Civ is not one server. It is a community that has moved between worlds. One country on one server might disappear when the map ends and then return years later under the same name with the same people. Old enemies meet again on new servers as new allies, and players carry friendships, grudges, traditions, political ideas, reputations from one another into the next world. The map may reset, but the community does not start over each wipe. When I played on CivClassic, CivRealms, and CivEx, that continuity was my favorite thing. When you joined, you weren't just joining a Minecraft server, you were joining a community that already had history around it. You might be thinking to yourself, Brady, this sounds awesome, but how does this actually work? And oh boy, it's complicated. I think the most important thing that separates Civ from any other genre is it's not chunk claiming, it's block claiming, or block reinforcing to be the most correct. Using stone, iron, or diamond, you can strengthen blocks using that material. Normally, stone is 50, iron is 250, and diamond is 1000. And by reinforce, I mean that's how many times someone would have to break that block before it actually breaks. And that mostly means that someone can't walk into your base and just destroy everything while you're offline. Not unless they have a lot of friends and a lot of time on their hands. The most beautiful thing about it is that players still have the freedom to attack each other whenever and wherever, but the destruction requires commitment. And I think the other major mechanic and funniest part of Civ is the imprisonment system. Instead of having an admin have to ban someone for griefing, for being annoying, for a war, for killing, players can capture them themselves and imprison them in the game itself. And on some iterations, you would be forced to work for that person if you wanted to get your freedom. I think imprisonment is such a basic system, but it really brings up big questions like who has the right to imprison someone, what evidence is needed, and how long should an imprisonment last? And that circles back to the beauty of the Civ genre, that it's up to the player, up to the country they form, or the tribe they form, or whatever they form. And the last and final most important piece of the overall puzzle is the server economy. Civ is strictly player-based economy, meaning no balances and no server shop. Each biome and region has better crop yields, better resource gathering for each individual resource. One nation might have the best food yield on the server, and the other might have the best diamond yield on the server, and they have to work together to make sure one country doesn't starve and the other country, well, has diamonds. And I'm not kidding about starving. There's been many times where I have seen new players on these servers starve to death because they're in a biome that doesn't have crop yield growth. Even countries and players that hate each other still end up having to trade usually, and it's in the best interest of everyone on the server to keep those trade routes safe. If one person robs another one on an established trade route, best believe that everyone within a 1,000 block radius is going to imprison that person. It's kind of awesome because, the game mode creates a reason for cooperation, but it never guarantees that the cooperation is going to last. Now, I know you've all been wondering, how do wars actually work on a server like this? And let me tell you, it's really fun. Normally, they start over some petty grievance. One person robs another one on a trade route, a chest gets stolen, someone kills someone else's cow. My favorite that I started is I planted mycelium next to a grass pasture of a nation, and it converted all of their pasture into mycelium. So there was a large bounty on my head for quite a while. But the second that war is declared on one another, nations gather their equipment, reinforce their important infrastructure, and build massive bunkers to hide in and to hide their loot in. And diplomacy goes wild, negotiating with allies, convincing neutral groups, even hiring mercenary groups on the server to come help them. Some conflicts have lasted literal months before they are resolved. And once those wars are finally complete, the fighting might be done, but just like real life, consequences are still going. People quit, their governments collapse because of it, alliances break apart, cities are burned and abandoned, prisoners are released or sentenced forever, national borders change, and players spend years arguing over who actually started the war and who actually won it in the end. But that's kind of the beauty of the game mode, in my opinion, is that people care so much about it that they're willing to argue for years just over who actually won the small war over who stole whose cow. And the reason that I can reference a lot of this is that the community writes its own history. Trust me, to be a Civ player, you have to be able to type 100 words a minute. They document everything. There's wiki pages about nations, wars, governments, businesses, elections, treaties, cities, religions, newspapers, and individual players. Most Minecraft worlds literally disappear into irrelevance the second the server closes. But Civ worlds leave behind literal history books of what happened around the world. And all of these amazing things that I've been talking about are exactly why nobody has ever heard of this genre. Civ is fucking difficult to explain to somebody. I could explain the donut SMP or lifesteal or factions to someone in like 2 sentences. Kill someone, take their stuff. That's it. To truly explain every small feature of a Civ server would take a 30-minute video. Honestly, this video isn't doing it full justice about the actual systems in place on the server. A new player can join, walk around for a couple minutes, and then go on the railway to go find somewhere new. The problem is that nobody's there to tell them that that specific railway actually belongs to a private company, that the town has an elected government, or that they're actually causing a diplomatic incident right now by going on the rail. and then they get imprisoned, accused of being an alt, or a whole host of other stuff. The learning curve is really rough. Veterans of the server already know who everyone is, what everything does, and what to do, and a new player might not even be able to know where they're allowed to build. Civ, as itself, is also kind of slow. The most interesting event might take weeks to develop, and a war might be a week or two of posturing and talking in Discord or in game chat before actual fighting starts. And that makes the genre kind of difficult to turn into normal Minecraft content. A lifestyle YouTuber can record a fight and upload it the next day. And I honestly don't even know how you would make a Civ video in a day. I'm not surprised that Civ is a small genre, but I feel like it's designed to be a little bigger than it actually is. So why am I actually making this video? And honestly, it's because I've played enough Civ to know that it's not always perfect, but I think it's still fun. The genre can be confusing, slow, overly political, bureaucratic, and exhausting after hours and hours on end of talking through the same thing over and over. There are a lot of moments where people take the server way too seriously. And joining the server as a new player can kind of feel like walking into a history class halfway through the semester without actually reading the textbook. Thousands of players have built nations, written constitutions, written their funny little books, created economies, started wars, and documented the history of worlds that no longer exist to play on. I personally feel lucky enough to experience a very small part of the overall community myself, and somehow almost everyone outside of it still has no idea that any of this history even happened. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and to check out my Minecraft server Broken Crown.